All right. Well, thank you, Chuck, Jamie, and Joe for joining today's panel discussion. Really, we wanted to sit down. We wanted to discuss, the last presentation and what has changed since. So, if we can all start with just covering, a quick summary of the last presentation and some of the key items that are going to, continue into today's conversation. So, Chuck, if you wanted to start us off on just a quick summary of the last presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Marcel. I mean, the real challenge that we ran into from an operational standpoint for our business, of course, was being able to migrate to the remote office and be able to get the applications into the hands of the people that needed to do their job. So one, if we kind of break it down into various areas, starting with our customers, we wanted to make sure that they had access to the information they needed, both from our customer portal, so they had access to their details on their account, but also access to details around their customer care membership, their support agreement details, and of course around their account. The other areas is on their ability to get access to project documentation as well. So really, accessibility was the biggest thing when it came to customers and having access to that information. Thankfully, we already had a lot of that already in place, and we're able to enable our customers to continue to do what they needed to do with their projects. And of course, putting that accessibility into the hands of all of our consultants.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And Jamie, if you could recap of the last presentation from your perspective.
Back then, and from March 2020 until November 2020, there, I mean, the items that were discussed or the items that were presented and brought. Sorry, it's mass move from home. Chuck, you can hear me fine?
I can.
Thank you. It's mass move from home.
Yeah,
it's the requirement of hardware that was limited in quantities. It's the requirement to communicate. How do you get your fellow team members, and how do you communicate with them? How do you continue to communicate with customers when you're working from home? Access to applications, access to files, the communication tools, and then how do you extend out the security to the remote workforce when everybody's outside of your office? So those were kind of the really bull rush of items that had to be done back at that point in time.
Yeah, Marcel, one of the things I'm going to do is I am going to turn off my web because it is slowing down my system. So I'm going to do that. So is one of the issues sometimes we have, the connection is not always the greatest. Overall, it's been very good, and the expectation of people working from home has been it's definitely been greater than I thought. People have been great on working from home. This is our staff. It's been a productive period. The item that I guess we're not able to do that we've missed is just being able to see people to face. So we are having smaller once a month get-togethers with just a few people at a time, where we're in the distance, but
Chuck, I think you and I are going to take it from here. They appear to be both having technical difficulties in whatever location that they're at.
Yeah, I think you may be correct, and it looks like somebody's closed down our webcams as well. So I think one of the biggest difficulties we've had is simply getting enough available internet bandwidth in a lot of these locations, or at least appropriate Wi-Fi connections. It's unfortunate that this has happened in our presentation, but hopefully everybody can still hear Jamie and I at this point in time.
Yeah, we're still heard, or to be able to heard at that point, video being excluded there. So you know, the next item here, I think, Chuck, it would be, so if that's a summation of what it was in the historical from last year, you know, what potentially has changed since in the 12 months since then, you know, what are we seeing that may be different from what we experienced in the first initial 8 to 9 months that we had that? And if I can ask you, if you can comment on that, please.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. And I mean, the first part was kind of the adjustment to the new world reality, and you know, from November on, really what we've been seeing is a lot of customers refining a lot of the systems that they put in place. A lot of times it was simply a stopgap situation where let's, you know, use the analogy, put band-aids on everything to be able to at least keep things moving forward in their operations, or they, you know, changed their business process, but not necessarily implemented new technology to help automate that process. We saw a lot of people moving from that to implementing these new systems. So, you know, if you watch my earlier presentation, I talked a lot about procurement to pay or accounts payable automation at these areas where we simply automated the finance team to be able to work in a remote scenario by putting web-based technology into their hands and approval workflows. So, you know, these are the types of things that people were definitely implementing, or at least tweaking and making those solutions a whole lot better. And I guess from your perspective, Jamie, what were you seeing?
Well, the change since then to now. Number one, the requirements and the scramble that everybody had to get this going at that time. People were doing whatever needed to be done immediately to get the work from home experience to work. Then once the dust settled after literally 3-4 months, then they started going back to look at what it is that they may have scrambled to implement. However, what could they do to more future-proof this for themselves? And what we see now is a continuation of that. Hey, you're seeing many more organizations that are looking to, well, what can I do to permanently take care of this sort of thing? What if we need to come up with a mandate to remove our on-premise hardware and servers? How do we get everything cloud-based so that we have the ability to work from anywhere, whether or not our staff are working physically within the office or not? There's that question of, hey, you know, how do we get them to work from anywhere, regardless of where they are currently at that exact time? So the process and planning of that move, it's much further along now for decision makers and organizations. Nobody is stopping that. It's continuing on. While we are seeing people coming back into the office, I don't think anybody's under the illusion that we're going back to the way that we thought of infrastructure and where we're going to be putting stuff. Cloud and everything is where everybody's going.
Yeah, that's a good point, because we haven't seen too much of it on our side. So where we used to spend a great deal of our time on site with clients, collaborating, designing solutions, all of that seems to have continued to stay in a remote situation. So, you know, we're continuously doing Teams, GoToMeetings, Zoom meetings, whatever it might be. And there doesn't seem to be that need or request for the clients to come on site. I think there is a desire for that to eventually happen. I think because we've lost that human connection to a degree with the technology. And I'm, you know, being an older person, having worked in the industry for over 30 years, I'd kind of like to go back to the way it was before. I think that's a personal preference. Maybe I'm an older generation. We like to do things face to face and with a handshake, but certainly, you know, that is going to be on a case by case basis as clients decide as to what they want to do. So, you know, looking, I guess, out to the future then, Jamie, what are some of the things that you see people really wanting to make change in? You know, from your perspective, what are some of the greatest concerns that people have kind of in the new world order that we're seeing now?
So it's kind of two-phase there, because there's what do people want, but there's what is a concern, because they're not necessarily the exact same thing. The wants and desires are still, again, accessibility by everybody to everything from everywhere. That continues on. The concerns that are coming out are really around that perimeter security, and they're not just driven by the organizations and C-levels and decision makers themselves. These can be driven by external forces, and most predominantly, these are going to be items where everybody's concerned about breach and ransomware and things. And well, it's one thing to be concerned, it's an entirely different thing to mandate to do something about it, or to be forced to do something about it. And where we're seeing the forcing of that are cyber insurance policies and renewals, or applications, even if you don't have any previously. But everything that's coming down since the summer of this year, the underwriters they're changing the way they do it, and that is forcing a lot of companies to take this a little bit more seriously. While they knew that it needed to be done, while they knew that there were some things that probably could be tightened up, now it's actually mandated. So the concern there is, hey, we understand the perimeter are people outside of the office as well as inside the office. What do we need to do to shore this up? And that is definitely much more of a concern, and things are being, put in that direction.
Yeah, and it's amazing. We've had our own senior management meetings, and we've had conversations around this extensively, of course, because it impacts us as a business as well as our clients. And unfortunately, we've seen so much happen with, many of our clients and the challenges that they've been faced with these types of cyber crimes, and it's becoming more of a problem every day. From the application standpoint on our end of things, what we seem to be seeing now, I go back to, again, my earlier presentation around digital transformation. The whole idea, again, if we go back to earlier COVID, it was survival, and then it was, let's put in place the appropriate systems to be able to get by so that we're able to meet the needs again of our own people and our customers. And now we're getting back to more strategic decision making, a more holistic view. And again, where we were talking a lot to, the finance team and controllers, we're now back talking with a lot of the C-level people, the CEOs, CFOs of the organization, around the strategic changes that they need to make in their organization, because I think they're getting a better handle on the needs of their own business, the way they've changed their service delivery to their customers, that the expectations of the customers, and what they need to do or have technology do within their organization to support that. So where we've had conversations with clients about automating specific areas of the business before, and they found it more difficult to justify those investments. Now we're seeing them actually making the decision to move forward in areas where before they felt it was more of a luxury. Now it's more a requirement to support the changes that they're doing in their organization. Specifically, we're seeing this in integration between multiple business applications. No more disparate systems. They want to get away from that, so that they get full transaction flow, full control. They want to automate ultimately as much or everything that they can, so it's no longer a hindrance to their organization. They'd rather invest in the technology to do this than in individuals to manually do this type of processing. The other area is in reporting and budgeting as well, where they want to get away from having to do these offline. They want to put automation in place to be able to manage that budgeting process as much as possible. So these are the types of things that we're definitely seeing people do. So they're refining, and they're really going with the digital transformation strategy.
And with the workforce spread out, that makes that cloud-based requirement for this data location and the integration even that much more important, because you don't necessarily have access to everybody like you used to in the old days of everybody being in the same office at the same time and being able to communicate ad hoc or in paper fashion, etc. It's got to be in one area and integrated between whatever different silos of line of business application that you're using.
Yeah, absolutely. If I look back 3 years ago, the cloud was often something we discussed with clients. When COVID hit, the cloud, the discussion around that was in every conversation. Now it leads every conversation. So it's all about migration, not only of any new technology, but existing technology or applications to the cloud to ensure that people have access to it. But beyond just simple accessibility, it is around security, it is around redundancy, it's disaster recovery, it's all of these things, because those things that we thought, they probably won't happen to us are, happened to all of us over the last little while.
And back to those external forces being the requirements, cyber insurance, etc. The premise there is you need to have a breach plan, and you need to plan to be breached. And by planning for that and having these items in place, you're showing that you're aware, and then we all hope that that never does happen to any of us. But having a discussion, planning for it, and then on being aware and being able to take the steps towards mitigating against it, but also to recover from it. Hey, this is all we all have to be aware of at this point in time today.
That's for sure. Is there anything else, Jamie, beyond what we've talked about so far that you see coming down in the future from your standpoint? I know you're involved, not only in the discussions within your industry, but I know you're involved in many leadership groups and, working with multiple MSPs. Any other key technology or things that you're seeing on your front from an infrastructure standpoint?
Well, just blanket stating again is that everything is going cloud. Everything, the conversations are all about security. Everything's about business continuity. Everything is about ease of access. So if those are the items that are being talked about and discussed, I will repeat to everybody again, choose your file management solution in the cloud. I'll just call for ourselves like Microsoft Teams and SharePoint. Get your ERP and say in line of business applications and hosted. There is a lot of discussion now, and it is not enough just to have the discussion, but it's the planning of it. So it's building IT roadmaps, using templates and best practices and industry standards to measure yourself against, and then determine what your course of action is going to be. It shouldn't just be, hey, I'm just going to buy a tool out there. I've heard this is good. Give me that and put it on. Nope. Start with a measurement. Measure yourself first, and then make decisions from there. Again, in security or in IT, you're going to start hearing more and more about items like zero trust. What does that mean? It's the least privilege and verify everything before it's going to happen. This is the jargon that IT people are going to be throwing at business owners and decision makers in the coming months, and the actionable items that are going to be coming in the next year plus.
Very good. And certainly on the application side, what we're seeing here is the introduction or better use or continue evolved use of artificial intelligence. And, so not only, are companies fully automating all aspects of their business, but they're now looking for that technology to begin managing a lot of that, more so than relying on that of people. So, for example, artificial intelligence to be able to help you close your month end much quicker. Artificial intelligence to help you and your auditors to be able to identify anomalies in your general ledger to be able to parse out things that don't look right and find these things well before you're actually into your audit. So I mean, I'm only touching on the surface there, but it's incredible how much artificial intelligence is going to be doing the entry level or lower level aspects of accounting automation, and therefore pushing the the value add that accounting professionals provide to an organization up higher and higher. My son is just finishing off his 5th year in finance in university, and I keep telling him, well, you got to stay ahead of technology. It's not a matter of knowing technology, but staying ahead of it, because so much of the technology is taking care of some of these, say data entry type positions. Certainly when you look at things like accounts payable automation and OCR technology. So it's all these things that are coming into play that are definitely changing the course of accounting applications.
All right. Well, I apologize to everybody out there for the technical difficulties that it does appear that we've had here. We're missing at least one of our panelists and the moderator themselves.
Yes.
Now coming up to the end, it's 2:42, 2:43. That's, I think, the end of our 25 minutes. Oh, Marcel, if you're there, I will transition over to you.
I'm back. Jamie, Chuck, thank you so much for being superstars and such professionals. We do apologize for the technical difficulties.